Hi guys, it's me, Brian from Echo1 USA, and in this video I'm going to show you how to take apart the Echo1 SOC16, and this will also work for the Echo1 M14 full size. So here we go, let's get started. Go ahead and take the wires out the back, switch to full auto mode, flip it over, pull up on the trigger guard, up and out like that, and it slides out. Now you can separate gently though, slide out like so, unplug here. There might be some tape wrapped around here just to keep this tight so it doesn't come off. Sometimes if you have your full stock for like M4 M16s or whatever, and you have the battery on the back and you drop it out and it slides out, it can pull and unplug this. So if your gun's quiet all of a sudden, check this little plug here. That could be the simplest case. Let me put this aside now. Okay, now for basically the upper and the gearbox, let's go ahead and take it apart. There's going to be another two-part video of assembling all this back together, so it should be plenty helpful. Okay, the spring guide has a spring here. Pop this up and slide out. There you go. Charging handle still slides freely. Small little spring up front. Okay, I'm going to use a small Phillips. Undo one small screw in the back. One in the middle. Pop that out. And then one up front. Okay. This little bar is held on by the two screws on the front and the back. The little small one is just for the mag well upper. Okay, now use a larger Phillips. Take out this flatter screw. And then you have the two screws on either side. The two longer ones. And take those out, and you might think, oh, how come it's not coming out? First you have to take off the fake bolt stop. Just pop that out. And then notice there's a little spring that goes, the little spring rests inside like so and matches up with that little hole right there just to get that springy effect. And then you have another Phillips underneath. Go ahead and take that out. Okay, now you're going to look at, okay, you took all the screws out, it's still not budging, or if it's wiggling like so, you want to be careful. If you pull it out, you can damage it, so I always recommend take out this pin first. So to tap it either way. I don't remember off the top of my head. Okay, there you go. Tap it out. There's a groove on one side, so it only goes one way. Okay, now this is loose just because once you take that pin out, everything is loose and easy to fall apart. Okay, now you have charging handle. You can easily replace it if needed. Put that over on the side, and your fake little bolt that slides back and forth. Also, you have a little clip, protects the top of your hop-up unit and your hop-up unit. Notice how it's springing. And on the top, this is where your little hop-up will adjust it when you turn this. And if this part gets stuck for inserting your mags, either full of dirt or just maybe rust or something like that, all you have to do is take off this little screw right here. You can get to all the parts, oil or clean it, and you get back in the game. Okay, let me go ahead and take out the hop-up unit and barrel. First, just kind of pry. You see this piece of metal. Just gently pry it. Always use a flathead gently. There you go. pop it off, put it to the side. Okay. To remove the outer barrel, to get the hop-up unit and the inner barrel, basically want to take off these 4 screws. Okay, now we want to do where the small. Okay, notice how it kind of springs forward. That's the spring on the barrel. And when you take it off, you're going to notice this little pin here that interacts with the outer barrel. And to make sure that's still intact, if you drop the gun and hit the barrel on something, you can shear this off and damage it. So just make sure you always have it there. Here is your hop-up unit. The spring, don't lose that. You have a tiny little spring underneath here. When you press on it, it adjusts like so. You can look at it. And here is, let me take the little clip off. Take the little clip off, you can slide it off like a regular hop-up unit. Slide that forward. Okay. Mad Bull bucking already installed. Now if you notice, the little groove is cut a little different than a regular like M4. Here is a AK hop-up unit. Let me take this off. Ooh. This is the latest Mad Bull hop-up bucking. It's like in our 249 and also in our packaged metal hop-up units. They should be in the stores now. Anyways, let me put that aside. Oh. If you look at, like say, an AK, like a standard barrel compared to an M14, notice how the cuts are. There are some aftermarket barrels that have cuts for both, so you can use it for either or, which is really good. But make sure when you're buying an aftermarket barrel that it's for an M14. Just make these cuts. Or if you're really skilled, you can use a file or Dremel tool and make this cut on any other barrel if you're really crafty. If you do, you get bonus points. Okay, let me put this back together real quick. Okay. Sure the little nub's still in there. And the spring is still on there too. Pop it in place. Hear a little click. It's secure. Okay, good to go. Let me put it back together so I don't have all these parts all over the table. Okay. Just going to slide it in there. Put this on there. Make sure it's secured to the outer barrel. Now I'm just going to slide parts together. Okay, just holding it with my hands now. This is springy, that's good. Okay, it looks like it's good to go. I'm going to go ahead and tighten all the screws down. Okay, double check. Okay, springy, it's secure. Okay, good. Go ahead and I'll finish putting the last 2 screws in. Okay, this is good to go now, so I will go ahead and put this, oh, let me finish. Slide it up forward and just press down evenly and gently. There you go. Be careful not to break this. It's a thin piece of plastic, so just be careful. Put that aside for now. Okay, now the gearbox. Let me show you the quick rundown of how it works so you can better understand how it works. It's kind of like an M4, but instead of all the parts on the inside, half are on the outside, half are on the inside. So depending on what you're doing, it's a little easier, but here, let me go ahead and show you. Okay, plug in a battery, Echo1 LiPo, and pull the trigger. Okay, it's in full auto. Now notice this little part is the cutoff lever. If you turn the selector switch back, notice this is like the selector plate. Now the cutoff lever, this part, is all the way forward. So when I pull the trigger, you have one shot. It's simple, it makes sense, but it just looks weird. So remember, you have full auto all the way forward, semi-auto back, and if you want a semi-auto only M14 and make a sweet DMR setup, just take this out and you'll be good to go. Or I've seen some people where they'll set it to whatever setting and actually take this unit out so you can't even make adjustments and it just kind of floats around in there. I would say take this out. Anyways, let me go ahead and take this apart. Okay, now you're going to notice you have a tiny little spring here, 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 here. Careful, don't lose track of them. Let me go ahead and start on the left side. Take off the one little spring. Another one. It's always good to have like a small little pick or something just to make the work a little easier. Okay, now for the screws, let me lay them out. You have a total of 4 screws that hold on the majority of the trigger parts. You have long, 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 short. If you have the long screw going here, when the piston goes back, it's going to hit it. So remember, long, 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 short. And gently take this off. Okay. Here's a little spring. Cutoff lever just slides off. Okay, the little secondary trigger, kind of like in a version 3. You have the trigger, and here's the sliding contacts, just held in place with little pegs. Pull that aside. Okay. Go ahead and put these off to the side. Okay, now for the other side, you have the main trigger spring. Go ahead and unhook that. You can just leave it on there like so. Then you have screws for the selector switch. Go ahead and take that off. 2 really small, thin screws. Put those to the side. Okay, now I can take off the selector bracket. Put that aside. And now for this part, it doesn't really have a name. Let me go ahead and take it apart. This screw does not have a washer. This screw does. If this screw is too long and it goes too deep, it will hit the selector, it will hit the sector here. Kind of like too long of a screw on this side. So remember, so if you're shooting the gun, after you put it together and it just locks up, that's the sign. Most likely it's either error here or error on the other side. Let me go ahead and take this off, put it aside. You might want to put the screws in like so you just remember. Put it off to the side. Okay, now for the safety lever. You have 1 screw, comes off. Then you have the lever with the spring that goes inside, and then a little metal detent that goes inside like that and goes from either side back and forth for safety on and off. Put that aside so you don't lose those little parts. Okay, now I can take off the trigger and put it aside. Trigger's pretty crazy looking, but pretty simple. Okay, now I'm halfway there. Okay, here we go. Like a version 3 gearbox, just go ahead and tap off the top plate, slide it off. You have 2 Phillips screws to hold the motor cage to the shell. And little washers on there as well. Pop those off, and there's your motor. And also, for your trigger contacts, if you have too much dirt and grease, like for all AGs, You can always clean it, or you can, I like to add a MOSFET whenever I get a new gun, just to prevent any arcing and sparking. Like say if you get your gun and you look at it on day one when you get it, and then you look at it like after a couple months, you're going to see like this black gummy grime stuff. You can either use a Q-tip, wipe it off, or you might have to replace the entire unit if it gets too burnt and damaged. A lot of semi-auto, like tap 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 tap, will cause that just because all it's sparking. But like when you shoot your gun, you'll see it. So okay, put that aside. And now to get to the gearbox. It's always a good idea to dewind the spring. Let's check out where it is. Okay, it looks like it's about halfway back. Let me go ahead and do my best to dewind it. Okay, looks like it's a difficult one. What I'm trying to do is get to the reversal latch so I can pull on it and release the spring tension so the piston isn't all the way back. Just trying to get in there first. Okay, well that's a little difficult, so let me just go ahead and take it apart. I'm able to use my hands to control the spring so it doesn't fly out the back. Okay, screw one from the front. Screw two from the middle. And screw three from the rear. So 1, 2, 3, plus the plate, plus the motor cage screws and all other parts. So let me go ahead and take it apart. What I'm going to do is press on the cylinder and lift up. Kind of wiggle it. There is a chance it's going to fly out just because I didn't undo the spring. Okay. It's always a good idea to use like a screwdriver in the back so you don't have this flying across the room, breaking anything. Okay, there is the parts. It's kind of messy because it exploded, sort of. Let me go ahead and take it apart and show you. Okay, notice the long spring. It's kind of like the E90, the version 6 gearbox, but it's like 3 times as long, and it's like very interesting in how you put it in there. I'll show you on the assembly video, which will be next. Make sure the shims and the bushings are all correct, not exploded all over. Okay, you might be curious, this is like a version 7 gearbox. It uses a smaller spur gear, which is, I believe, 29.7 millimeters, I believe, around. Same like the Marui and the GMP upgraded steel torque gear, which if you use the GMP gear and drop it in, it will fit. And there's also the aftermarket version 7 for Marui gearbox. Those gears will work in here. You have the metal bushings already installed. So basically you have a version 7 gearbox. Spring, or the reversal latch, is a version 7 as well. And you can use regular gears for the bevel and the sector. The only difference is the smaller spur gear. Okay, here's the spring, plastic spring guide, the piston that's ported on the front. Okay, slides in. You add the version 7 tappet plate, the M14 air seal nozzle. No O-ring, it's just the standard stock air seal nozzle, just fine. And then you have the cylinder head. Pop that off. You have one O-ring, which is fine. You can use Marui or any other Marui labeled aftermarket parts for this. I prefer the modified upgrade kit. It's really simple, double O-ring, O-rings everywhere, high quality, and it's really affordable. So this concludes the first video on the M14 Echo1 Series takedown. The next video will basically show how to put this all back together with the steps and the tips and tricks. I'm Brian from Echo1 USA, and stay tuned for a matter of moments for the next video.